Right, hello. It has been a minute or two, isn't it? It's been 3 weeks. This is episode 132. It's the 26th of April, if anybody can actually believe that. The last Chocy Chat I did was the 29th of March, believe it or not. Seems like a long time ago. But anyway, I'm back. I'm here. We had a good break. It's all good. It's all good. I'm going to send some hellos out. So, Mrs. So Sassy was the first one to join us. Billy there, Scottish Chocolates. How are you, mate? Amazing post earlier today, Billy. The Amazing Grazing. Who else we got? Ooh, Mother Baker there. Darth Chocolatier. How are you? Stuart there. Gosh, Erin. Ron's Bonbons. God, it's the whole crew's here tonight. How is everybody doing? Right? Nick at Chapel Lane Chocolates. How are you? Chocolates by Sea. Gosh, so many. Mariba there down in New Zealand. Who else we got? Kate Mudge, how are you? I'm looking well rested. I am. We had a technical hitch this week though. Something called kidney stones. If anybody suffered from it, it's not nice. Really not nice at all. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, I had a lovely holiday. Thank you. I missed everybody. I think, do you know, when I don't do Chocy Chat, I miss doing Chocy Chat as well. It's really hard to explain that. Rani and I were just talking about that earlier, that like you always kind of need, like holidays, right? You need something on your horizon. And I know that Chocy Chat's become this Friday night. It's kind of, you just know where all your friends are going to be at 8:30 and you can get to say hello, and you can and if Chocy Chat, you know, like if it's just become this meeting place where you can ask questions, you can say hello, you can share information. That's what it was always about. When I don't do Chocy Chat, I miss Chocy Chat as well, which is just enjoy. It was. She's saying it was work as well. Amazing Grazing, driving captive to Los Angeles from Carmel, captive audience, happy days. That's a bit of a drive, isn't it? Gosh. Your family is lovely. Thank you. Who else? We've got people in Colombia. Alison, welcome back. Alison, Alice does. So I'm going to answer your email. We got back to hundreds of emails. This is a joy going away. You come back. I took everything off stock while we were away. Just because last time I got back, we put the key in the door and I knew that I just had hundreds and hundreds of orders to do. And it's a real challenge kind of getting off a plane, driving home, opening the door, and you've got to start work. It's just kind of not the way to do it, is it? So we took everything off stock, and you know, I am slowly getting stocked back up again because it was a heavy hit this week. So, but it's all good. We had a good holiday. We had a good break. It wasn't all holiday. There's a lot of work. Because we were looking at bottles and labels and suppliers and factories and looking at things that we could have made that are a bit more cost effective. Lots of business meetings, lots and lots of discussions. Time out really for me and Rania and the girls. Really just have a think about direction of the business and what we're doing, what do we want to move into, how are we going to do it, what does that look like, planning. I think as anybody that runs a business does, when you're knee deep in making things, particularly creative businesses, so you know we are in a creative workspace. If you don't stop to just step back and have an overview of what you're doing, you just keep doing the same thing over and over and over. And one of the things about being creative, do you know, creative can look like this sometimes, just sat back thinking, right? And if you don't give yourself time to do that, you just keep kind of on the treadmill. And I think it's really important. I'm certainly saying this to everybody in Chocy Chat. It's quite hectic because we have December. You get a little reprieve in January, and then it's you know, the biggest one. It starts Valentine's, Mother's Day, Easter, and it's quite full on, right? And you don't even get a chance to really reflect on December and how that went and what would you do and how would you do it differently and what went well, and if you're going to do it again, what would you do differently? Because I think they're the normal questions you ask as a business. I do think it's crucial. It's really crucial. We had some great ideas while we were away. We had massive block paper and we just kept writing the ideas down about the conversations that we need to have, because if we don't, we're just, you don't know where you're going, do you? So it is nice to get away, definitely. Nadia's there, good evening. Gosh, got people in Stockholm all over. Question, is making caramelised milk chocolate the same as doing it with white chocolate but milk chocolate recipe? No, Stuart, you want to caramelise the sugar and then make it as a normal milk chocolate, right? So rather than just putting white sugar into that mix, you do caramelised sugar, right? It can look a little bit grainy. If you put milk chocolate into an oven to try and brown it, you'll find it will burn because of the cocoa solids. So it's the recipe of a normal milk chocolate, but instead of white chocolate, you would add caramelised. Instead of adding white sugar, you'd add caramelised sugar, right? Which is why it looks a little bit grainy. But if I'm honest, I mean, I like caramelised chocolate. I think it's kind of well documented how much I like caramelised chocolate. Didn't find any in the Middle East. There's an opening there for somebody. I do like caramelised milk chocolate. I really do. So, happy days. Kfaya Harim, hello in Palestine. Wa alaikum salam. Amazing grazing on holiday and went to every chocolate shop to see what other people are doing. Happy days. You should. This is one of those jobs that you're just fully immersed into. I did that in Jordan. We went to chocolate shops. A lot of the chocolate there is all compounds. There's not many people making anything with cocoa butter because at the point that we had cocoa butter, it starts becoming expensive. We had lots of yandujas, lots of kind of pralines as well. Lots of stuff with pistachio, really good pistachios as well. But we had a look round. I think the challenge we've got is here we tend to put things into boxes, whereas I think the Middle East market, I think Asia is the same, or near Asia. It tends to be sold by the kilo, so you would get a big bag, and if that was bonbons, the shine, the gloss, all that kind of thing would be destroyed. But it's a habit of the job, isn't it? I'm into food, so it doesn't matter where I'm going. I shared lots of pictures of the food that we were having. It's just an eating experience, right? That's my life. We just literally go from one meal to the next, right? And found some incredible produce, found some incredible ingredients, found some incredible suppliers that we can get stuff to. There are trade agreements between two countries, so getting stuff is just hugely not a problem at all. So, but you should, amazing grazing, go into chocolate shops, see what other people are doing, ask them, talk to them, tell them you're a chocolatier. You'll find that they are very friendly. You'll find that they're very friendly. And I think if you're travelling, it's worth putting on the Chocy Chat page anybody in this area I should go and have a look at, right? Because you probably get some good leads that way. So, oh yeah, amazing time, absolutely amazing time. So Paula's there. Hello, Paula. Who else have we got? Yeah, I don't think it'd be using Luca if it's going up 60%. Oh, it's just chocolate prices. I've had lots of discussions. We read a lot of the reports on the analytics because the cocoa butter really hugely affects us. And it depends what you read and where you read. Yes, unanimously, there is a rise in price and there's a bidding war because there isn't that much stock. But you read the analytics of JP Morgan and you get one story. And it is as I said, it's a soft commodity. So the prices will come down. When, we don't know. It will be to do with the yield reports. And JP Morgan analysts say one thing. When you look at Citigroup, their analysts say another thing. HSBC, so the top 5 tier banks that have the analysts that look at the stock market. West Africa's reporting that the temperatures are cooling, but then another report says no, they're stable. So it's hard to dissect what is right and what is wrong. I'll tell you what I do know, because we've had price rises in chocolate before. This has happened before. It's not been this high ever, but it has happened. It has doubled in price, and I think it was 2008, 2009. I mean, it shot up. Everything was double the price. It's a soft commodity, so it's growing. So at some point there will be new stock. I think the challenge that West Africa's got is the price was set so low for the farmers, they were never ever able to reinvest because the middleman took the big chunk of money. And that was compounded by the likes of the EU putting legislation forward that said, you've got to build this building, it's got to have these walls, it's got to have this ceiling, it's got to have this infrastructure, it's got to have all these bits and pieces. So to be able to supply there to rebuild that stuff, but that they built the buildings, but they weren't able to reinvest in their plantation, their stock, their seedlings to grow more. And then they weren't allowed to use deforestation. Well, naturally, the boundaries will move if we've got to grow more stock, right? So is it deforestation, or is it just humans naturally move into another area? The deforestation on palm oil, that's devastating. I don't think it's anywhere near that with cocoa, because they're established. It takes 7 years to grow. You know, don't really fruit till the 7th year. So deforestation, I don't know, there's a big question mark over that. It's a tough read, right? And it's tough for everybody. I think on what I read and what I understand, and I have talked to a couple of people that are in the stock market, it's a soft commodity and it will come down. I truly think that we get to this time of year, chocolate sales for us slows down. Southern Hemisphere starts up again. We see that with the orders, like Southern Hemisphere orders are just getting more and more and more, and it's tailed off a little bit, Northern Hemisphere, whether that's East or West, whatever. But it naturally slows down for us, so it's a good opportunity. I think, I said this on the last chat. Anybody that's got talking about UK, if you've got a food, if you've been inspected and you're allowed to produce food and you're home-based, you should just diversify some of your products, and it's maybe moving into the cookies or doing less chocolate, or actually growing some additional products in your inventory. When I say growing, what I mean is like diversifying into some patisserie bits, whether it's cookies, cakes, you know, kind of whatever you used to do, just to take the pressure off having to produce the chocolate. Most chocolatiers in the UK and Europe, we get to kind of May, June, it starts to tail down, it starts to tail off anyway. It's a case of switching gear and, you know, continue with the markets, but find products, whether it's like the likes of marshmallows, packed fruits, or doing the cookies, doing the biscuits, doing some of the things that macarons is an example. If you have a license and you've been inspected to produce at home, this is the opportunity to maybe just diversify some of your products and have a range of items going, right, just to get you through those times. So I need a job, I can help as a volunteer. Which I've got 4 workers. Mrs. So Sassy's not a worker, she's an owner, but I do have 3 helpers. I'm from Brazil and I love you. Thank you very much. Chocolatia joined us. Chocolatia does some amazing stuff. Absolutely amazing stuff. If you've not had a look at Chocolatia, Chocolatia 20, go and have a look. Absolutely amazing. Gary there, Nights Candy Shop. Gary, how are you feeling? Are you better? My sound has gone. No, sound's there, isn't it? Got everything working. Mother Baker, it's okay, user failure. Did you press pause? I did have some amazing food. Yeah, the food that, do you know what strikes me? We kind of held a business dinner, and it was kind of 60-70 people. I couldn't afford to do that here, not by a long way. Just the price of food there seems to be, and there's a real eating out culture, huge eating out culture. Like if anybody's ever been to Amman or any of the Middle East countries, you go out at 10, 11, midnight, the streets are absolutely heaving with money changing hand from small vendors selling food and bits and pieces. So there's a huge eating out culture, and it's not hugely expensive. It's nowhere near, it's literally a third, if not half the price of what it is here. So people can afford to eat. We saw there were boxes of tomatoes being sold, huge boxes, and they were like the equivalent of $1. We came here and went to the shop and we got 6 miserable tomatoes for like £2. It's just heartbreaking. Misty Max, can I make nut paste for Ganduja with a Robo Coupe, or is a Melanger better? You can make it with a Robo Coupe. Robo Coupe is definitely a stronger machine, a stronger motor to be able to cope with that. So Robo Coupe, it'll work. You're not going to get it really refined, so there'll be some texture to it, which is fine. Melangers really grind things down to a really smaller micron size, and the longer it's in, the smaller those nut pieces are. Without a doubt, you can do it. I think things like for a robo coupe, like I don't like putting walnuts and pecans in a melanger. I just don't like that the floury texture that comes out of it, right? And you have to put more sugar in to just kind of thin it out, and you can't put cocoa butter because it will seizes. So robo coupe for things like pistachio, pecans, walnuts, and the challenge you have with walnuts is it's got all that husk on the outside, right? And that's really, really bitter, and you can't peel them like you can almonds or hazelnuts. I've worked in a few kitchens where the chefs had us poach them in milk, and we all stood with tiny little knives peeling walnuts, right, just so that they were beautifully white, only to see them scraped in the bin at the end of the night. It's just like, but that's what you get working at Michelin Star. Get all the tedious jobs. Everybody thinks it's glorious. It's not. It's just not at all. Robo coupe has got a really strong motor. If you try and do nut paste in a machine like a Thermomix will cope with it, Robo coupe will cope with it. With the smaller machines, you'll find the motor will burn out, or it will really, really struggle to create a paste. But yeah, definitely go for it. I think melangers, you can just get a much smoother. You can get a much smoother paste, and you can get a lot more in there. That's all. So. Mo, you're so hard. Mo, you're so hard on yourself. You shouldn't. You shouldn't. Did you sentence enhance? Is that why you put the sound off? Simon, Woodrow Chocolates, Mad Chocolates. How are you in California? Simon up there in Norfolk. Norfolk is the mid-east towards the north of England. Beautiful area of the world. Absolutely beautiful area of the world. So. What else have we got? I'm going to say some hellos out. Chocolates by Neander. Gosh, there's so many. My apologies for being away for a couple of weeks. 2 weeks of it was holiday. The other one I was a bit poorly. I was a little bit poorly. Little Coco. Hello. Who's got questions then? So, thank you, Linda. Chocolate creams. How are you, my friends? I saw a lot of caramels wrapped and sold as s'mores kits. Yeah. Seen that. Who else is there? Linda is there. Art and Chocolate. Hello. I've got to scroll through. Bridget, chef, how are you? I didn't know what half the food was. It just looked incredible. I try all of it. Proper overindulgence. The desserts aren't hugely sweet. There's a thing called kanafe. So anybody in the Middle East now will know what that is. But what it is here is essentially, like if you took mozzarella and you melted it down into a layer, and they put this kind of biscuit crumb over the top of it with pistachio, and they bake it, and it's served warm. And whilst it is cheese, they then pour like a hot sugar syrup over the top of it. It's one of those things, like you eat a little bit and you're like, oh, I should have a bit more. Before you know it, you've like a whole kilo's gone in. Very addictive. But not there's not lots and lots of sweets. There are sweet items, but they're kind of, I would suggest they're more savoury than they are really, really sugary. But as I said, a lot of the chocolate's all compound chocolate, so it will be the cocoa mass and sugar. And they use the same polycarbonate moulds, and when they pour them, they'll colour them, they'll do all the same thing. Once they pour it into the moulds, they will shock chill it so that it retracts a tiny bit so they can turn it out, and nearly everything gets foil wrapped. So happy days. Jason there, Napa Valley, how are you, sir? Fancy Nancy's joined us. She's in Canada. Who else? Chocodilic. You. That's some testament and dedication. Chocodilic. If you didn't see the post on Chocy Chat, I think it's a wedding, Evelyn, isn't it? It's a wedding, but you've done the bride and grooms, and it's like I've looked at it, and there's tartan, and then there's like the tuxedo. You sat down for a long time painting, didn't you? I hope that is worth the payoff. But having said that, sometimes we do things for pay. Sometimes we do orders because it's fun, it's interesting, it's engaging. Trust me, I have corporate contracts, right? So it can be a little bit monotonous doing 4,000 of the same thing. It's lovely to get that little twist of being able to create something new, different, and when you finish you're like, thank God that's done. But then also you kind of look at that work and it gives you other ideas, or it inspires you, right? So what's the opinion on using fruit gels that are agar based instead of using pactifree? Yeah, Jason, look, agar is a hydrocolloid, so it will bind up water, but it doesn't bind up water the same way as pectin does. The other thing is that agar, you won't take it to a high enough temperature. When we take a fruit puree and we add equal quantity of sugar, essentially what we're doing is making a caramel, right? We're making a fruit caramel, but not at a really high temperature. So we might cook it to 104, 106, 107, depending on the fruit. So we cook it really high, drive off all the water, and then set that with the pectin, which will net and mesh throughout the whole thing and cause that solidity. With agar, it's a hydrocolloid, so we don't subject it to that high heat. So with agar, whilst you will bind it up, the problem with agar gels is you've basically got trapped molecules of water that aren't bound like the outside. The inertia that's holding that bubble of water isn't strong enough for it to break down. And if you've got too much citrus, right, or if it's too acidic, that cell wall will break down, so you'll end up with water. I think agar for gels is absolutely great if you do, if it's a short shelf life. So if you're like doing wedding favours and it's 3 days, absolutely bonus. What you can do though is take a pack de fruit that's already done, or a jam, right, and then thin it down and reset that with a little bit of agar and a little bit of pectin, and that will give you a decent enough shelf life. Agar, they can just be a little wet and they can seep a little bit. If you ever make an agar gel and you turn it out on the plate, once you leave it a few hours, you'll find the top is really wet, and it continues to squeeze the water out, or the water that's not bound up. The problem is if you put that into a shell, eventually that will seep through and you'll end up with a load of water in the mould, and then you will end up with the other type of mould. So not an ideal thing. If it's a short shelf life, absolutely go for it, but it's not something I would do. I wouldn't use agar if it was an extended shelf life I was looking for. So what's deep fried quail's eggs? I had a dish in the middle. I'm not going to talk about this. I had the baby birds dish in the Middle East years ago. I didn't really know what it was until I was eating it, and when the person next to me explained, as like, you know, if those moments you got to just stop and go, I can't believe you just told me that. Could we talk a little bit about what to put as best before on chocolate boxes? I see that a lot of producers only put 2 to 3 weeks, but shelf life is a lot longer on many recipes. Yeah, good question. So I put, if I do I don't have a collection, I'm going to get to it shortly. We will do nut-based filling, so pralis, andoujas, or we will do caramels, right? To kind of avoid the ganache thing unless I really have to. Now, I know that that's good for 120 days, but I don't want customers to keep it for that long. So a use-by date will have a scientific, there will be a scientific documented reason why it's got to be used by that date and no longer, okay? So that will be machine or computer tested. It will be relevant to handling, storage, whether it's a sealed box. Generally speaking, a use by date will be put on a product we know will deteriorate at a certain point, and if you eat it after that point, there's a danger of bacteria growth, mold, spore growth. So a use by date would be backed up with some scientific reasoning at why you can't eat it after that date. A best before date is a guide for the customers, and different countries do different things. The best before date is like for mine, I will say 6 weeks, for example. The most recent one we did, I said best before, and we picked that date of 6 weeks, okay? I know it will go another 6, 12, 16 weeks after that. The difficulty is when I store it and I do my testing, it's in control conditions. So I know what my room temperature is. I know how I'm storing it. I know it's sealed in the box. It's not going in and out of the fridge, warming up, cooling down, warming up. I don't know what the customer's going to do with it. And this is the challenge. And this is why you err on the side of caution with a best before date. If we know it's going to get to 100 days, my best before date would probably be around about 50, half of that. That would be a safe margin. As I said, I don't know how the customer's going to handle that. Are they going to leave that out on the side at 25 degrees? Is it going to go in the fridge, out the fridge? Are they going to put it in the freezer and then take it out? I don't know what they're going to do it. So the best before would be, it's good up to that 50-day mark, but I'd expect it to start deteriorating based on its handling. Therefore, that's my safety factor halfway. It's fine. I think the other thing is that as that date prolongs, I think there is an intuitive question that customers ask: why will it last that long? Because it's chocolate and it's got a filling. We know chocolate. I mean, chocolate lasts forever. It's just how bad is it going to look texturally before it goes crumbly, doesn't it? It goes crumbly and chalky. But if you remelted it again, it'd be absolutely fine. It's really to do with those fillings and the storage and the packaging and how well it's handled, and we have to put a date on it. And I think you err on the side of caution. I'm not a huge fan of being given something where they say this will last 6 months. I don't really want to buy something that's going to last 6 months. Horses for courses, do your own thing, right? Err on the side of caution. Chocolate spicy, just err on the side of caution so that there's at least a safety net in there. If you've got a best before date and they consume that after that date and they come back to you and say it's mouldy, at least then you can say, I gave you warning, it's a best before date. You should also put on there storage parameters, which is, you always see this written down, it says store in a cool, dry place. Well, cool, what temperature is that? What temperature is cool? Do you know? And store in a dry place. Well, dry as in humidity, what's that? 50% humidity, 40% humidity? We know as the humidity goes up, deterioration of food is exaggerated. As that humidity goes to 60, 70, 80, food, particularly food, the shelf life massively drops off. So the advice is store in a cool, dry place, and your shelf life at least half. If your chocolates have only got, like if you're making ganache and it's only got a 3-week shelf life on it, I would suggest you write down and say consume within 14 days, or eat me within 14 days, right? Store in a fridge, store in a cool, dry place, store below 21 degrees. At least give them give them a figure that they can work to, because it's frustrating when you see something and it says store in a cool, dry place. What temperature is that? So there we go. I think that's answered that. Simon saying Norfolk is nice. Norfolk and Suffolk are both beautiful, I've got to say. I watched another baker making ganache with compound chocolate. It has its place. There's a lot of countries in the world that do not use cocoa butter because it would treble the price. Kids in the Middle East can get a big kilo bag of chocolate, and it's a few dollars, right? A few dinars. If we added cocoa butter, it would be out of their reach. Different things. I saw the same thing in the Middle East. I saw the same thing in Asia as well, where it's priced out. And I think with the difficulty with the cocoa prices at the moment, I think you're going to see some of the big retailers, some of the bigger producers start to innovate a lot more with using less cocoa, using more sugar, using more maybe trans fats, palm oils, to back bulk chocolate. So I think you're going to see in the market more cheap chocolate that isn't chocolate, compound chocolate, right? Which is sad, but it's the truth, because that's what's going to happen. So we're going to talk about how to mitigate these chocolate prices today. It's a tough one. Everybody's got a decision to make, and we've had to make a decision on the products that we produce. It is a soft commodity. It's going to come down. I've seen a few emails on the prices that have been, or the percentage rise on some of these prices, and I've got to say retail has got to take some of the blame for this because they want more profit. When you see what farmers get per kilo, and then you see what it is when it reaches the end user per kilo, you're kind of like, somebody made money here, and it ain't the end user, and it ain't the farmer, the middleman. And you see some of these conglomerates post their year-end profits, and you're like, wow, imagine if the farmer's got that to reinvest. It's a real challenge. I think, I've done a couple of posts on this. Make every single gram of chocolate that you've got count, right? So zero wastage. This is a perfect opportunity to really analyse what it is that you're making, and do you need to make it, and does it all need to be ganaches, or can you get away with caramels, which are just cream and sugar? Not affected. Can you diversify some of your products to make things that would sit alongside your chocolate display? The public are understanding, and actually, if anybody comes in and talks to you and says, you've not got as much chocolates anymore, it's quite easy to say, yeah, there's been like a 400-500% rise, and I'm just going to ride this wave out. I think that there's some commercial sense in business. If you put your prices up too high, one or two things: you're either going to not sell any, or you're going to lose your customers. And think of this as kind of like a mini recession. And it sucks for chocolatiers because it just affects us directly. Anybody that's in the patisserie market or the sweet market, it's not affecting them. You should try and make some products that sit alongside yours from that area of the industry. Sucks to be chocolatiers at the minute. It's a soft commodity. It's going to come back. It is going to regrow. It's a real tough one. Just watch your prices. If you go up too high in price, you're going to... you can destroy customer loyalty, but you're also not going to have sales, which could lead to wastage. And I think it's the perfect time to have a look at what you're making and say, do I need to make 12 different fillings? Can I get away with 6? Do I need to make this mix? Am I going to wait until I've completely run out before we start more? And make every single gram of chocolate count. No wastage. Absolutely no wastage. So... Chocodilic saying not financially viable in the long run. Yeah, but they're nice to do. It's really nice to do. I did some stuff earlier this week. I did a post earlier this week, right? Those two bars are the same colour. Oh, let me pick these up. Fuchsia red, one's backed with white, one isn't, but they're exactly the same. To give you an idea, that one's backed with white, that one isn't. Exactly the same colour. Okay, what I was trying to explain with that, I think some people got the message. Type A's are see-through, so they're completely see-through. Type B's will offer you some opacity. The Type C's will as well. If you sprayed a Type A and then sprayed like Rari Red and you put silver behind it, you'll get some opacity. You don't always need to back something with white. Equally, they're exactly the same thing, right? One's backed with white, one isn't, and you wouldn't know the difference. But I talk to a lot of chocolatiers. I do a lot of classes, and there's this assumption that we have to back spray everything with white, and that's not necessarily true. If anybody saw the post early in the year when I did, we sprayed Rari Red. I backed one of them with white and one of them with Caramelita. Now, white, EU, it's banned. The rest of the world, it's fine. So I backed one with white and one with Caramelita. Caramelita is an iron oxide. You couldn't tell the difference between them. And it's, why would you spray twice if you only need to spray once? And it's kind of making those decisions. But all of this is about efficiency, and all of this is about knowing the butters that you've got and the colours that you've got, and asking yourself whether I need to spray a different colour behind it. That is just, we sprayed green and then I sprayed gold behind it, okay? And then I didn't back it with white or anything. So the Type C's will offer you some opacity so that you don't then have to back with a white or back with another colour, right? So why would you spray twice when you only spray once? I know people that would back, spray the green, spray the gold, and then back that with white. Now you sprayed 3 times when you didn't need to. So, happy days. please. Hello to everybody. If you're new and you've just joined, it's nice to see you. It's got to go. Do you advise to just keep refrigerated? What's that? To keep what refrigerated, Linda? Yeah, Jason, I did. You'll have to watch it on back. You'll have to watch it back, mate. Susie Floozy's joining us. Hi, Susie. Chocolate Monster, hello. I'm going to send some waves out. Happy days. You're welcome, mate. Gosh, there's lots of new names. Lots of new names here I don't recognise. So if you're new to this, ask your question. Ask the question. Go for it. The number on that bar mould, this one is by Implast. I like Implast moulds. This one is number 475. It's in the post that I did a couple of days back, but it's the Implast 475. I get that the right way around? 475. Yeah, 475. It's quite got a low curve on it, but it does give a really, really nice bar, right? I think. I also like the Martello one, the curved one. It's a little bit too deep. It can be quite a challenge to do certain designs in that. So, your caramel recipe is fab, thank you. What temperature do you set the induction to for reheating caramel from the fridge? Is it to 40, emulsify, and then 35, 34 still? Yeah, do you know what? There isn't a temperature I take it to. I will take caramels back up so they're hot enough and liquid enough that I can emulsify them again. If you don't, if you warm them to 40 and there's a lot of chocolate in that caramel recipe, you're going to find it's very difficult to stick blend. Whereas if it is just a flat caramel that's got butter in it, it'll be very liquidy and you can blend it at kind of 35. Warm it up fully so that it's all liquid. What happens is, like I tend to rewarm mine in a microwave rather than putting it in a pan on an induction stove. We will put it in, we'll give it a blast 30 seconds, give it a stir. I don't necessarily measure the temperature of when I get to. It's really what I'm looking for. When the caramel and the fats break down, you get these long strings, okay? And what we're looking for is all of those to disappear, either by agitation and temperature. So it could be 40, it could be 45. Once I've got that remelted, because that's what we're doing, remelting the fats that are in the caramel from the cream and maybe from the chocolate or the butter or the cocoa butter, then we'll give it a really good blend. I will always pour it through a sieve, because pouring it through one of these, if you heat caramel and you pour it through one of those, you will get rid of all the air bubbles, all the trapped air bubbles that are in caramel. And caramel is notorious for trapping bubbles, because the thicker the liquid, the more it traps the air. Pour it through a sieve, low down, and you'll get all the air bubbles to dissipate. When that reaches 34, I would add the silk, give that a really quick good stir in, and then I put that in the piping bag. I'd lay it fat, and as soon as that's at kind of 29, 28, we will go ahead and pipe. So there's not a magic number that I'm looking for, it's a visual. I'm looking to see that the caramel's safe, the caramel's made. It's not going to change. I'm not going to change anything with it. I'm not adding anything to it. And if I am, it's going to be dry. So I could warm the caramel up and add spices or vanilla or lemon zest, orange zest, citric acid, malic acid. So you can change the preparation with dry goods. It's not going to affect the shelf life of it. Once it's melted enough and it's fully liquid, we'll blend it, get it back to its original starting point, and then go back through that cooling process so that I can pipe and do what I was doing. So Twisted Tulip Designs, hello. I'm going to send lots of hellos out here. Anyone know how much Meridian charge for custom print advent calendars? I don't know, Dark Chocolatier, I'd go to them, but yeah, it's certainly that time. There's lots of people looking at Christmas stuff right now. I'd get hold of Meridian. I'd have a conversation. I would speak to one of the telesales there. They'll give you an answer. They deal with that day in, day out, year in, year out. So greetings from Mexico. Hello, Mexico. Jeddah gifts. I want to go to Jeddah. I want to do some tourism in Jeddah. I want to go and see. I love the old castles. I don't know if you We were at this place called Karak, and for anybody that's seen the movie Kingdom of Heaven, and there was a really nasty character in there with like a ginger beard that was just kind of doing horrible things. That's loosely based on Karak Castle where we were. It's truly amazing when you see this thing from low down and you look up and you're like, how did they build that up there? It's absolutely gigantic. And when you're on the top looking down, it's like, this is just incredible. Views of the Dead Sea, Palestine, actually 360-degree view around the whole area. Absolutely amazing. Fun. So I like old castles. I do. I mean, would it be safe to add along with the expiry date and keep refrigerated? Yeah, absolutely. You know, if you make chocolates and you put them in a cold fridge, the not the expiry date, the best before date, still remains. You know, if you freeze something, that best before date is stopped. Okay, and then when you take them out of the freezer, it continues again. So if you've got 6 week shelf life and at week 2 you put it into the freezer, well, we've still got 4 weeks of shelf life left when we take it out, defrost it and sell it. Does that make sense? Freezing doesn't kill bacteria or things. What it does is just suspend everything so nothing happens, right? So try and avoid the expiry date. It's either a best before date or a use by date. Very often in chocolate work, we're not using a use by date. We'll be using a best before date, right? So starting panned products this week, I think I could get away with firm ganache balls as the centres as opposed to nuts. Ariel, you can. It's the temperature of them when you put them in the pan. It's a long time. It's 20 plus years since I did panning, and I think there's some newer things on the market. Funnily enough, it is something that we're going to venture into shortly. So it's making sure that the problem you've got by using, if it's a firm enough ganache and it's fairly solid, okay, when it starts tumbling, okay, it will warm up. Any flat edges will stick to a flat edge, okay. So if it warms up too much in that pan when you add the chocolate, you could end up with one giant ball. It's making sure that the ganache is absolutely firm, really firm. And bear in mind, like, of the panade pieces, that centre square, you would expect that to be quite solid anyway. If it's anyway slightly soft, you're going to get flat edges stick to a flat edge and you're going to end up with a giant Ferrero Rocher, and that's not cool at all. But panning's a really good fun thing, right? Once you've worked out hot and cold, and that you're not using tempered chocolate, and then the cleaning, there's so many little steps that you need to follow. It's a real art form. It's a real art form. Make sure you got a pen and paper to write down what went well, what didn't go well. So, Jeddah Gifts, how can I avoid sticking chocolate in a mould? It could be a tempering issue. So with tempering, like with these here, and I explain this on the classes more. Let me get these off here. If we temper cocoa butter, it will form beta crystals. Okay, beta crystals will mesh throughout that chocolate or that cocoa butter. Okay, if we paint that on the mouth, I've got one here actually. Here's one. I've been filming in between not feeling well today. I've been filming tutorials. So there's a little tutorial coming out shortly on that there. Okay, the luster dusts. So we've done that with little rings. If we temper cocoa butter and make sure it's got beta crystals in it, and we paint it in, it will form a layer, it will dry, it will crystallise, okay? If we put chocolate on top of that and it's got beta crystals in it, because that's what tempering is, it will form that layer, it will dry, and then it will crystallise. And what beta crystals will make those two products do, cocoa butter and chocolate will only do this if it's got cocoa butter. What it will do is it will shrink. And what I mean is, that fits in there nice and snug, okay? But what it's done is if I press on that, you can see it started to stick to the mould, okay? If I press on that. When it shrinks, and it's microscopic, when it shrinks, it will pull away from the mould. That's why we temper things. That's the reason we temper things. If your cocoa butter is not tempered, so we're going to heat it to 40, 45. That top temperature is absolutely irrelevant. You are going to melt it beyond 33.8. So 35, 36, 37, you don't need to be facing north, all those silly little things. You're going to melt it till it's melted. I've got some here. That's melted. That's in a liquid state, right? I would take that to 35, 40. That number is irrelevant. There's no gain in saying I melted this to 45. Just melt it and get it melted. If it hits 50, it hits 50. Put it over water. We're going to cool it down very, very rapidly over cold water until we reach 27, 26. Okay, and then we're going to warm it up really, really gently. When we warm it up gently, what I mean is during that cooling down of that cocoa butter, the beta crystals are formed. If you apply too much heat when you warm it up, you like literally the touch of a magic wand, you will melt all the beta crystals. So it looks like cocoa butter, it will spray, it will do all of those things, but it won't crystallize. If that's in the mold, if you've damaged those beta crystals, when you add the chocolate in, if the chocolate retracts because it's tempered, the cocoa butter will be left in the mold, okay? And then onto the chocolate side, the only reason we temper chocolate is to balance all those crystals that are in there. We're really only interested in the fifth one. Crystals 1, 2, 3, and 4, they're fats and sugars and different things, and it's all different at lower temperatures in chocolate. The one we're interested in is the fifth crystal, beta 5, form 5, whatever you want to call it. If we protect that, so with the seeding as an example, we take chocolate, we melt it 45 like the bag says, we add chocolate and we stir. The cold chocolate that we've put in is melting into it. Nothing's happening until you get below 33.8. Any chocolate left in there when it gets below 33.8, that's what is seeding your chocolate with more beta crystals, the agitation and the cooling down. Then we warm that back up. And if you warm that too aggressively, you're going to melt all the beta crystals that you formed during the cooling. And this is the single biggest mistake I've come across. No, I've had in the last year or two. Couple of thousand students. When I explain it, the beta crystals are really delicate, and I explain it like this. Some of you that have done classes, imagine your chocolate. Imagine if you took an x-ray of it, you would see what looks like candy floss. Billions and billions, cotton candy, billions and billions of microscopic filaments that go out through the chocolate. That's the mesh of beta crystals. When they cool down and we subject that to cold, what it will do is shrink, and when it shrinks it will pull away from the mold. Okay, if we had, and I did a post about this the other day, that color is, they're two separate entities. There is the chocolate and there is the color. If we had the tools and we had the ability, we would be able to separate those two, because the color is sat on top of the chocolate. Both of them are shrunk together. Okay. If you've got chocolate stuck in a mold, it could either be a tempering issue or it could be a temperature issue. At the point that we paint with cocoa butter, we need to just raise that temperature a little bit. I know there's a few people on here that have called me, like I get emergency calls, and for people that are using Selmies and things, they tend to use the chocolate at too low a temperature. It's fine if you're enrobing, it's fine if you're doing other bits and pieces, but at the point that there's cocoa butter, depending on how thick that layer is, now the chocolate needs to be warmer, because those two layers have got to melt together and then shrink together and then move together. As I said, you know, I did a post the other day which confused some people. Polishing your molds for hours and hours ain't going to make them, it's not going to make your chocolates more shiny. It doesn't work like that. Tempering your cocoa butter and not damaging it when you warm it up is going to be good. For my brand, I know that we can use them. I know lots of you use these, the Ice Cocoa. You can use them at a lower temperature, which means you can spray and it sticks in the mold. And I think everybody gets that now, that the cocoa butter is very different. The product that we use is very, very different. We can spray it at a lower temperature, therefore I don't need to warm it back up. So we can cool it to 26 and use it. Once that's crystallized, then you can put the chocolate on, and that will dry and then crystallize, and it will shrink, because that mesh of beta crystals makes it all shrink, which is why that comes out of the mold, right? And it should be, they will. They go in, but they never come out very well. I always advise people not to take them out, but that one sits in nicely, and because it's shrunk, it will lift out and it will be clean. If you've got chocolate left in the mould, it's normally because it's not, it's cooled down too quickly, or it's cooled down unevenly. I certainly, you know, an example of teaching this is that when we shell and then we dry, and I think you've all heard me talk about this drying phase. Somebody called me out on it and said, well, a drying phase means something else. We'll call it a drying phase, we'll call it a resting phase, we'll use simple terms so everybody understands it. We will shell with chocolate and we tip everything out and we give it a scrape, and then we leave them upside down and it goes dull, okay? If I can just hold that dull phase without cooling it too much for kind of 10-15 minutes, if I then subject that to very cold, so 6 or 8 degrees, I use 8 degrees in my fridge, if I subject that to 8 degrees, all that chocolate that contains beta crystals and the cocoa butter that's been melted across the chocolate, they will both shrink at the same speed and they will come out. Polishing your moulds, doing all these strange things. Very often we'll just get a hairdryer, give it a quick warm and a quick buff. We don't spend hours and hours polishing every single mould. We're dealing with food, they need to be clean. But polishing your mould doesn't make your chocolates more shiny, just makes your mould cleaner, right? So sassy chocolate with a 6th emergency service. But anyway, I hope that explained a bit for everybody. So, how is Sophia's collection? She hasn't done any. I'll tell you what, she made them and they all went. We now need to start more, right? But I got a little bit busy with this stuff this week. So all my questions have just shot forward like, wait, okay, here we go. Is there a reason why I can't use the caramel from the fridge if it's fluid enough? Yeah, you can. Might be a chat, you know, if it's fluid in the fridge, it's going to be even more fluid at room temperature, in which case capping could be a problem unless you're going to use acetate. But no, there's no reason why you can't use it straight from the fridge. I'm not a huge fan of stuff being put into piping bags and then not tied in it and then put in the fridge, and I'll tell you why. The outside core of it gets very, very cold. The outside element of the piping bag gets very, very cold, but the inner core remains really, really liquidy. When you tie a knot in it, it's like a solid piping bag. There's no way to remix it, or, you know, the end of the tip of the piping bag's solid, so you cut it thicker. By the time you get halfway down the bag, it's just pouring out everywhere. So if it's, yeah, Evelyn, you know, I give it a test. You might find that as a caramel, because there's emulsified fats in there with the sugar, if it's fluid in the fridge, it will be even more fluid when it comes back to room temperature. So, and you might find that if it's fluid enough to pipe coming from the fridge, you might find that it just domes too much. And everybody in Chocy Chat knows what happens if you have domed fillings, right? When you go to cap, you end up spreading that one down the length of it, and there is no way to repair that. You've lost the whole row. So, underfilled caramels. What induction cooktop would you recommend? Looking to purchase soon. Love the Control Freak, but the price is steep. Is it worth it? I have a Control Freak. Yes, it's worth it. The challenges you have with the cheaper varieties of induction stoves is great for boiling water, great for doing purees, okay for doing pâte de fruits. As soon as you start doing caramels, there are a sensor in the bottom of it. And the reason we bought the induction freak is the Control Freak is this. I can caramelize sugar all the way up to 180 and the machine doesn't trip off, right? Whereas when you get the smaller, cheaper kind of induction stoves, it's got a built-in safety device. So as soon as that pan kind of goes over 100, I mean, even working in commercial kitchens, we just couldn't use induction stoves to fry scallops or steaks, because as soon as that pan hit 160, it cut off. You had to cool the bottom of the pan. So Control Freak, they ain't cheap. Is it good? Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. I can put a caramel in there, I can put the sugar in there, I can pour dry sugar in there, I can set the temperature to 160, and I can walk away and I can leave it for 2-3 hours and just let all that sugar melt and then come back, turn the heat back up. The controls that you have, you can change it by half a degree it's very, very good. It's a good investment. It's not cheap, but it's certainly something that will help you as you get further on, when the accuracy for what you're cooking just needs to be so much more exact. I don't know about any other brands. We bought the Control Freak very early on. I've had that 3, it might be even 4 years now. We use it a lot, particularly with caramels. If I'm not using like open gas flamed and bigger amounts of caramel, it's much easier for me to just set the probe, set the temperature, walk away and leave it for a few hours. So it is steep, agreed. I like the Sage products as well. Bought the coffee machine to go with it. Bought the toaster as well. Here's the thing, talking about, it's Sage Polyscience, right? And it's an Australian brand. When you turn the Control Freak on, it does this little song, and it's quite cute, right? And the coffee machine does the same thing. It's like, oh, so we bought the toaster, plugged the toaster in, pushed it down, doesn't make the sound. Like, what? How can it not make the sound that we like? Anyway, these little details. I think Sage missed out when they did that. Anyway. Girls House Chocolate. I need help making caramel from brown sugar. I ruined 4 attempts. You can't. Brown sugar is a wet sugar. It's normally about 22% moisture, between 18 and 22% moisture. And they're a blended sugar using molasses, so it will stick to the bottom of the pan and it will burn. What I would suggest you do is, if your recipe calls for 2 pounds of sugar, brown sugar, I would caramelise white sugar and get that up to temperature, turn the heat off, put the brown sugar in, and it will melt and dissolve into the caramel. It's very, very wet, but the molasses that are in there, I mean, they're like touch paper. It's like touch paper on a firework. As soon as that hits a hot pan, it starts burning, right? So you can, if you're talking about brown sugar as in the dark type muscavados, Demerara you can. Demerara isn't technically a brown sugar, it's a raw cane sugar that's just not been kind of bleached out, right? So Stuart's reminding us Christmas is 8 months today. Thanks, Stuart. I think it's Boxing Day is 8 months today, Stuart, but you know what, it's me getting picky. Can you believe it's the end of April? Can you? Ariel, you are most welcome. How Sophia's chocolate answered that one. Where are we? I use a lot of your Ice Cocoa butters and realise that some of the thick ones, like Deep Purple Shimmer, spray better at 28-29 rather than 26-27. Yeah, absolutely, they do. One of the things, if you've got... it's got the flake in there, so you would need a 0.8 needle, and I think it says that on that internet. Cocoa butter is, at 33 degrees, cocoa butter is as fluid as it will ever be, right? And at 26, for most cocoa butters, is around about the setting point. Very different from mine. My setting point's 24, our brand. The setting point's 24.2. So once you get to 24.2, you'll see the ripples on the top of it and it'll start setting. When we've got, like with Deep Purple Shimmer, we've got 3 additives in there. We've got type A, type B, type C. We've got type A, which is the colouring, the fat soluble colouring. We've got calcium carbonate, which is very, very thick. And I think calcium carbonate, with the exception of the not quite white, the only other product that has calcium carbonate in is the TI-free purple, TI-free pink, and the Deep Purple Shimmer. It's a thicker product, so yes, you would need to warm it. Now, it's as fluid at 33, and it really changes. And if you think about your chocolate, at 34 degrees, chocolate's quite runny, isn't it? But it really changes viscosity as it drops down through 32, 31, 30, all the way to kind of 27 chocolate. It's really, really thick, obviously depending on the brand and variety. If you need to warm the cocoa butters up, absolutely fine. If you put it in a spray brush, with that Deep Purple Shimmer, if it's in here and it rests on a stand for too long, those and the warmer it is, more of those flakes will soak to the bottom. So you'll end up with your airbrush stuttering. That makes sense. You'll end up doing this, and it's like. The only thing you do is empty it out, put some new stuff back in, and give it a really, really good shake, and then carry on spraying. But if you leave anything with any gold, so Fool's Gold as an example, so Sassy Silver as an example, if you leave it to stand for any amount of time, you will find that flake sinks to the bottom. Because it's a suspension. There's only one element of 3 that are fat soluble. The rest of it are all suspensions, right? So how can I know that chocolate reach point beta crystal? You can't. The beta crystals are formed during the cooling process. Worth having a read up on that one. So Ned, N2 Sweet Labs. Ned's posting some amazing stuff in that shop. I absolutely, just what a lovely little patisserie shop. I think I need to get in the car and come visit you. I've got some rhubarb in my garden. How can I use it to make the best long shelf life recipe? Cook it without sugar or acid. Cook it with a lid on really slowly. Turn it into a puree. Strain it. Keep it, and then make pâte de frites fluid gels. And if you need to, you can boil it down by half and use that like you would passion fruit juice with white chocolate. Pick something like the Edelweiss by ICAM because it's not as sweet. Process, you know, if you've got it growing, process it and freeze it by all means. It's absolutely amazing. If a recipe calls for melted cocoa butter, can you use silk? No, silk's a different thing. Silk would look like, let me get one of these out. Where are we? If I melted cocoa butter, it wouldn't look like that. So that's silk. That's just over tempered cocoa butter with too much beta crystals in it. If I wipe that on the table, if I leave the lid off this for a minute, it's going to set like concrete. Literally, this will set in front of my eyes. Why would you use silk? Because that's taken 2, 3, 4 days to be ready. And if you use micro, it's just going to be an expensive way of doing it. If the recipe calls for melted cocoa butter, you just want to melt cocoa butter. If you use silk, silk is cocoa butter. It's just over tempered. You want to keep the silk for tempering chocolate, tempering cocoa butters, and then melt cocoa butter. Melt it to the melting point of cocoa butter is nearly 40 degrees to get it fully melted. If it calls for cocoa butter, I just use normal. You know, just get yourself normal cocoa butter. It's only going to be a setting agent within that preparation because at room temperature it's very liquid. But when we get to when it solidifies and goes cold, cocoa butter is absolutely rock solid. So. Thank you so much. You're in my head so much when I'm working. Such useful information. Thank you. You're absolutely welcome. Silk, the lazy chocolatier's favourite. I know, right? Just anyway, we're not going to talk about that. It still starts getting negative, and I don't have time for negative. I'm too busy. It's really lovely to see everybody. Thank you for the questions. I'm going to get away in a minute. I know it's been a couple of weeks. I like doing Chocy Chat. I miss Chocy Chat as well. I miss seeing all my friends. I wish I could see more of you. I wish this was a bit more interactive because it's just you can see me, but I can't see you. I do talk to you a lot. I do answer all the questions. Instagram messages has gone off the charts. It's some days it's too much. And then I get the answer my question. To be clear though, if you message me on Facebook, it's not an area that I look at because that just gets absolutely trolled with every advert you can imagine. There are 300-400 messages sometimes on Facebook. Buy this, send me this, send me that. So don't message me on Facebook. It's highly unlikely that I'm going to reply. And I do not use WhatsApp. WhatsApp is for family. I don't answer WhatsApp messages. You can get me on Instagram, you can send an email, you can send it to sales@sosassychocolate.co.uk, or you can send it to Chef. I try and answer everything. It's been a long 3 weeks and I have missed it, and it's really nice to see you all. And some of the posts, some of the tags of the product, truly inspiring, truly amazing. Sophie, you're going to come and say hello? You're going to start your butt.
Yeah.
Sophia's got a new design. Who liked that? Come and say hello, Chocy Chat crew.
Hello, Chocy Chat crew. Miss you all.
So, we will restart the bars this week for Sophia, and we've got to get some more stuff for the lip glosses and all that kind of thing. So, and before anybody asks, no, I did not test any of the lip glosses. We're having fun. We are So Sassy crew. This is Chocy Chat. Thank you everybody for joining tonight. I'll see you next week, which will come round even faster than anybody can actually imagine. So have a lovely week. Be nice to people, especially those closest to you. The world's in an absolute state right now. It's so nice to see everybody on Friday night. Have a lovely weekend. I will see you all next week. Take care.
Take care, everybody.